My first computer was a computer named Mr. Blue that was blue that my dad bought at a garage sale from somebody in our neighborhood who built it himself. And so we didn't understand, how to build computers, but he'd assembled this himself and was selling it at a good price. And so I think I mostly used it to like play Minesweeper and some of those very old games. I think I got my first MacBook in college, and that was my first very, very much my computer. Zynga and Neopets. It really dates me, but I first touched HTML when I was trying to customize my Zynga, which was this blogging, site, and my middle school started using it, and I found that you could set custom songs and custom backgrounds, and so it was that era of people just being able to have their little personal landing page at one of these blog sites. So yeah, my first experience of being like, this is a great app, this is a great social experience on the internet, I think, was just having my little Zanga blog and reading my friends' Zanga blogs and seeing how their day at school went, and then seeing what their music was on their page, and then I would set a different song, like I don't know, some Death Cab for Cutie song or something. Yeah, my Zanga account, let's see, it was like Aqua Rose, and then I had my first AIM account was Tangerine Seal. And then actually my username now, Arcalinia, I think I started using fairly early. And it was part of some little game I did with my friend. We like made up all these characters, not a video game. We just like drew them out on paper, and Arcalinia was the name of one of the little girl characters that I made. And so I just turned it into my screen name. Wasn't a gamer, but I actually got into this years later through a guy, and I think the first game I ever played was um, Zelda Breath of the Wild, so fairly late, a few years ago, but it was on Nintendo Switch, and we were traveling together, and my boyfriend at the time was playing Zelda, and I was like, oh, why are you on your, why are you playing all the time? And then I was looking over his shoulder one day, and then I was like, give me that. I took it, started playing it, and I disappeared for 2 weeks.
I mean, people call that the greatest video game ever created. So if you start off in a genre with the greatest ever created, you could do worse. How did you feel about Tears of the Kingdom?
I haven't played it because that came out once I was running Bluesky, and I didn't want to disappear for weeks again because at the time that I played Breath of the Wild, I had a more flexible schedule, and so I was basically, it was more okay to do that. Now I just decided to put this off, and well, I'll pick this game up once Bluesky gets to a stable place, which hasn't entirely happened yet. Can't really like risk losing any time on my schedule to in a new Zelda game. Yeah, my first cell phone was a Motorola Razr, one of those old flip phones. It's hard to recall, but I do remember a notable movie that I saw in a theater when I was fairly young was Mulan. I went to watch that with my mother, and my mom's Chinese, and so I got all this commentary on the movie that I still remember some of, like when the emperor hugs her at the end. My mom was like, "Oh, that's so unrealistic." Yeah, and the first CD I ever bought with my own money was a Britney Spears album. I think it was the Baby One More Time album, the one where she's very young and like sitting on the front of the album cover. That was one of my favorite CDs at the time, and then got all the other Britney Spears albums. That was definitely the era. Well, I kind of switched careers after college. Like I started off as a digital activist, working at nonprofits, and I came into a years-long campaign that these organizations have been pushing on net neutrality. And then I was there working at one of the nonprofits spearheading this push when we got some, Title II net neutrality legislation passed. So that was a very big win. And I went out to San Francisco. I gave a talk at the Internet Archive called like Victory for the Net, things like this. And then actually, I think part of the reason I switched careers is that was kind of an underwhelming moment because everyone around me had worked for years towards this goal. And then I was just kind of thinking, but wait, this feels very fragile. Like things could just change. Regulations, like people in power could just change and then it will all be thrown up in the air. And that's exactly what happened a few years later. Like the leadership at the FCC changed and you're kind of back to square one. So at the time, I was like wanting to get back into programming. It was something that I'd done a bit of in college. So I decided to learn how to code, like really do it this time. And I decided to become a programmer so that I could actually change things through code rather than just legislation. And then I distinctly remember a moment where I was going out to get a burrito as I was about to drive across the country and move to California and become a programmer. And I was looking at some news about Facebook. And it really frustrated me that we'd been organizing all of our political campaigns like through Facebook events and on these platforms, and we had really no way to change things about any of the way that they were run. And I really wanted to give people more control over their social platforms. So I very audaciously at the time thought to myself, like, well, someday I will build a social platform that changes the way that like Facebook works, and that memory is very distinct to me now. And I think back to it because years later, after I'd leveled up my skills in programming and decided to start my own thing, I started working on decentralized social protocols. And then I built an alternative to Facebook events. And even though it didn't get that much adoption, there were only like a few thousand people that used it. I started to feel at that point that I was going back to my roots and I'd like really gained the necessary skills because I was able on my own to like go out there and build an alternative to Facebook events and actually start making a change. And of course, Bluesky, much more of a full realization of this, and actually feel like we're shifting the conversation on a lot of this stuff now. Well, I have a little Raspberry Pi that's like traveled with me over the years. And for a while, I was running my own little Git server on it. And I did a lot of things with it, just to kind of like prove that I could do it and have my own little itty bitty cheap, computer thing running. And so I think that was the Raspberry Pi was really cool because it was just so accessible and you could do all these like random little things with it. And yeah, I tried different little projects, and I think I don't really, go through the trouble of running any of this stuff myself anymore, but it was fun at the time to do it. Oh, that, or actually for a while, I think this might be like the coolest nerd thing that might be unique. I got two very, hefty multi-gigabyte like USB drives, and I had one of them that was a version of Tails, and the other one was a cryptographic signing key. And so when I would sign releases for a while, when I was a digital nomad traveling around, I would just wear these on me at all times. So I would keep them on my person. And then when I needed to sign a release, I would take out and like boot into Tails, this like encrypted like Linux distribution, and then sign it with my signing key on the other earring. And so I don't know if anyone's ever done that. It was pretty fun.